Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this now moment with myself and with one another. Just gonna go into a little flow, making sure my microphone was on. A little energy update. I recently did some videos. Let me just back up. So what my guides were basically showing me was, so thank you for tuning in, sharing this now moment with each other and one another. You guys were here on Earth in this moment. We made it to this point. And we're creating a reality that is unlike any other reality that we've ever experienced on any planet in any lifetime that we've ever experienced, because it's unique and special to our own individual soul journey right now in this moment. That is something that's major. So the more we can appreciate where we're at as a soul cycle, as a soul, as our soul is shifting and changing, the more we can appreciate how far we've come. But not just how far we've come, where we are at now as a collective. And even though it may not feel exactly how we want it to feel, it's a bigger shift and a bigger change than we have ever gone through, from what my guidance team is telling me. So it's kind of a big deal. Anyways, so yes, we're going to have vertigo at times. There's going to be times that our body, so I'm just going into the energy update. Vertigo, there's going to be relationship collapses. There's going to be health things that come up that are very unusual. We might feel really funny at times and not be able to explain it. High heat, feel spacey, feel like we're sinking through the floor, feel like we can't get out of bed, feel like we don't want to go to bed and we can't sleep. You guys, you name it, it could happen, because life is not meant to be stagnant. Our bodies are changing. All of us have an individual blueprint and body expression. Therefore, how we express the changes that we're going through in the physical will be very different based on our own individual experience. But as a collective, I'll share with you the vision that I had recently. There's a lot going on with the crown right now, pineal, as well as the Kundalini. Now, without getting into the fact that Kundalini is essentially a life force or a charge that's moving through our system that feels very similar to a snake-like energy moving up the spine, if Kundalini is activating for a lot of people, then it would only make sense that it would be felt throughout the whole body, because it is a charge going up the spine. Everything is connected basically to the spine, right? All the nerves in the body. In addition to that, even though, we might be having some crown and some pineal activations, we may also be having some things going on in the tailbone and the root, or even the sacral specifically, because it's all connected. For example, cranial sacral therapy, which I do, which I have participated in and visualize in my energy work that I do when I work with others, is connected, the cranial to the sacrum. So again, the list of ascension symptoms that I like to refer to lovingly as evolutionary opportunities to recognize that we are going through motion and change, and we are growing. They're all different. They're not going to necessarily just be one thing. You might have a collective group of people that are all experiencing vertigo, and you'll have another collective group that are all experiencing headaches, and you might have another collective group that is all experiencing heart palpitations. I do find that quite frequently people that are on the same, I don't even know if soul group is the right word, but in the same type of vibrational frequency, or we'll say a collective within a collective, do tend to experience very similar symptoms all around the same time. So there's a group that I know of right now that have really strong vertigo, that are just really challenged with it right now. My soul tribe that I connect with primarily, and this is not like, this could be different for one or two people in my soul tribe, so to speak, and it could be the same for all of them. This isn't judging like, well, my soul tribe is going through this. It's not what I mean at all. It's more of like the people who are going through a particular type of activation because of what they're linking into, or what they're clearing together, or what they're integrating together, because they've chosen to kind of go through this experience together in the same way, if that makes sense. Might be experiencing more of the pressure in the crown and a lot of fire in the spine. So it'll be different for everyone, but it is nice sometimes to have that validation, especially if you're not used to this, because some people are just starting to have these things happen to them and they're like, why? What's going on? So that's why I wanted to kind of pop on and give that energy update. So yes to all of the above. With the particular group that I've been tuning into and tuning with, we'll call my group the Tuning Forks. We all have a tendency to experience many of the same symptoms at the same time, whether that be because we are part of the soul tribe, or because we are bringing awareness to this particular reality structures that we're each tapping into, that then activates that more fully within one another. Almost like sympathy pains is irrelevant. It's a way to process and assist one another in integrating these symptoms and these experiences. I'm also talking in a very multidimensional way, so some of this will make sense for some and not all of it will make sense for everyone, and that's perfectly acceptable, which brings me to my next energy update. And the message that was coming through was, we are like ships. The vision was, we just came through a very tight canal, so to speak. So picture a very specific, small canal, and we are a ship. We're like a giant pirate ship, we'll say, and we're a ship, and we're squeezing through this space. And as we squeeze through this space, many of us had carried passengers on our ship from lifetime after lifetime after lifetime that were ready to jump ship, that we couldn't take with us, or that no longer they'd already fulfilled their purpose. And so those passengers were removed or jumped overboard, left of their own choice, obviously, so on and so forth. Everything I talk about it can be used as an analogy, and it can also be literal in this particular presentation. So for example, we could think of it as our lives. You know, we've had many, many lifetimes on Earth, let's say, for example. And over the course of the last week or so, or the last few months even, we've been integrating those lifetimes. And we'll call those lifetimes the versions of us, or the timelines, for example, that we're carrying with us. We could call it karma, whatever you want to call it. We're being invited not to assign a value that's only that value to these words, and to be open about it, because it helps to realize and release certain things that we've been moving through in our lives. So as a ship traveling, we've got all these passengers or other versions of us that we are essentially streamlining and creating more space for the us that's living in this now moment. So I'll go into that in a little bit more depth. I was also shown that we could use the analogy or comparison of barnacles. We're a ship, we're covered in all these barnacles, and as we're sliding through this space, this new space, which we're squeezing into, a port, a node, if you will. I see it more as a port, like squeezing through this portal. Then these barnacles are scraped off so that we can go through more smoothly and faster, right? And this can be maybe referenced to the outside of the ship, but all of this is referencing many things. Our physical form, energetics that we're letting go of that no longer. So we'll start with, I kind of jumped all over the place, but let's start with the barnacles. As we shed old skin, as we get rid of those barnacles, we can see what's really underneath. Those layers are exposed. It can be uncomfortable at times, and it can feel raw. But then once those barnacles are removed, we're able to streamline much faster and go smoother through these portals that we're lining up to. Those barnacles can represent the same thing as the passengers that I was talking about on the ship. So they can be physical, meaning we're shedding old skin cells, we're letting go of old eating habits, we're doing cleanses and detoxing, sometimes by choice, and sometimes because our body's like, guess what you're going to do right now? You're going to get so sick and that you're not going to be able to do anything but detox, because that's what's needed and that's what your highest aspect has decided is most important for you right now. Because if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to squeeze through the next portal, which means you won't be able to basically continue with the expansion that the soul craves, and then that might be time to move on to a different place. Does that make sense? So a lot of people couldn't squeeze through the portal. They couldn't accept or allow themselves to let go. They didn't want to let go of old habit patterns, people in their lives, and that's a reference to the people on the ship. And so they wanted to hang on to it all and still try to fit through this space. And because of that, they weren't able to fit. Some people left and moved on because the soul wasn't able to grow and expand. And, you know, that it just wasn't the right thing for them anymore. So they may have left planet Earth. And there are others that chose to stay behind in maybe lower dimensions. They weren't ready to let any of that go. I mean, there's so many different layers. This is a very multi-dimensional description of what's going on energetically. It's not just one thing. It's not just physical. It's layered. So with the physical body, we're shedding all of these, things in our body that just don't work anymore. People's diets have changed, and I'm kind of giving a really long energy update here, but this is Ascension in general. The energies around the body also have to shift. So essentially what we're putting into our body and why we're putting it into our body. Why are we eating the foods that we're eating? All of that is changing too. And every time we have those realizations, boom, one barnacle is removed and we become a little lighter. As soon as we just let go, all the barnacles can scrape off. What happens though, what they're showing me is that it creates when that happens, it creates, let's say it's dust, when you clean and it's really dusty, it's harder to see for a little bit. It becomes a little bit unclear sometimes, like, well, am I going in the right direction? Now I can't see. And the biggest message is trust and just allow that Gulf Stream, right, the stream of the ocean, to assist us in pushing us through these portals or pulling us through these portals with the current. And that current is referring to the charge. The more we let go and the more we expand in becoming lighter and let go of those things that no longer add value to our lives, meaning create expansion, meaning allows our soul to expand and become lighter, so to speak, then the less that we need it and the more it's becoming more and more obvious for a lot of people what those things are. And if people aren't willing to look at that and they still don't, then they're not going to be going and moving in the same soul group as the particular people who are moving into that fifth dimensional aspect. Does that make sense? Kind of was all over the place there, as it is with multidimensionality, right? We're not always just point A to point B. This also has to do with patterns and people in our lives. So some of us had passengers that were riding on our ship, trying to kind of jump on our ship so that they could get through the Gulf Stream a lot faster. So we'll see if my little guy wants to chime in again. So it's time to let go of those freeloaders. They have their own journey. And this is, you don't have to let go of them, but this is what I've seen energetically, and this is the energy update. So the days of us feeling like we have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders is over. unless we choose to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. It is not our responsibility to take other people with us if they don't want to go with us. It's that simple. It's not our responsibility to control their feelings or to control their viewpoints. It is our responsibility to steer our own ship. As we steer our own ship, we then clear and remove the energy around the space. So again, this reference to ship, think about water. Water holds memory, water holds energy and frequency. And if we're sending out good vibes, so to speak, that's going to ripple out in the water that everybody else is traveling through too. Therefore, it assists everybody in their own process just by being us, the ship that sails through these waters in the most coherent way. So letting go of those that, are stowaways, so to speak, recognizing that some of these things, and I'm speaking about people, places, energy. So let me give an example. It could be a friend that does not add value to our life and really has no desire to move in the same direction or in the same vibration. We don't have to be going the same way, but we're operating in the same way. So meaning love and appreciation and non-judgment. And if somebody else refuses to be in that and that's where they want to play, we don't have to stay and hang out with all the barnacles. It isn't something that we have to martyr ourselves for and to do, because that isn't the way things are operating from my perspective. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we don't have to be the ship that's ahead of everybody else saying, follow me, because that might be against somebody else's current. Somebody might choose to go the Gulf Stream, and somebody else might go and choose a different current and decide to go to a different ocean altogether. And it doesn't matter. Letting go of that need to control the outcome or control other people's opinions about us is a big part of this as well, from what I've been shown this last week. So this can be also, again, I talked about the physical body. It can be habits, foods, smoking, drinking, eating meat, not eating meat, whatever it is, it might be for somebody. Eating less processed foods, and that I'm not going to get into that. There's so many videos about that. It can also be lifestyle changes, and it can also be what we tell ourselves. So those stowaways that I was referring to on the boat, or those freeloaders, can sometimes be, and it can be relationships as well, but it can sometimes be our belief, our stories. I forgot I kept telling myself that I'm not good at anything, or nobody loves me. That's all old, and that's going to only weigh us down. And as time goes faster and faster and faster, so what I was shown this week was a lot of things. And it was like I was watching a movie go by, or going really fast in a car, and I would see a quick blurb of that, and a person would show up for me, a memory would show up for me, a situation would show up for me. And I'd see it, go, oh, I see it, boom, it's gone. Oh, I recognize that, boom, it's gone. Integrate really fast. Once those barnacles, we allow them to kind of get pulled off on the current, and we don't sit and stew with them and go, should I, shouldn't I? Sometimes just let things go. And it's that old, what is that old term that's like, if you let it go, if it loves you, it'll come back. But again, if it's in alignment, it'll flow in that same current that you're flowing into. If it's not in alignment, it's going to go carry off into the current that it needs to be carried off into. So this is also having to do with belief systems. There's a lot of our beliefs about things are going to be shaken up. I mentioned to someone recently, forgetting that I just mentioned, oh yeah, it's like having a dream that comes true. And they looked at me like I had grown a third head. And then I realized, oh yeah, they don't think that that's real. Because in their reality, that is, and they even were like, you mean like a witch? And I was like, yep, exactly. That is what I'm talking about. Yep, a witch. Because this is a belief system. So there's going to be revelations that come up that may shock people, that may really set us back. This can be from what I've been shown, mathematics, science, history, because as we change the now, we change the past, because everything's happening now. And that's a real weird one to wrap your brain around, but it's true. So the less we get used to something, the less we get not even comfortable, but how much is our comfort stagnation? How much is that comfortable really just barnacles that are waiting to be released? Because those barnacles are going to be used as energy for the universe, or for the cosmos, or for source, or for the ocean, or whatever you want to play with this story. Also, I say barnacles with love, because we all have, or have had, or will have people in our lives, situations in our life, belief structures in our life that are barnacles. And they serve a purpose. But that doesn't mean that they're continuing to add value or to serve that purpose. Once that purpose has been served, it is time to move on so that it can serve the all. And it can be integrated and composted, as I've talked about many times before, into the energy that feeds back into source in an open sourced system, right? Or create charge, because it's then able to move and be and move onward and upward, right? Well, I think that's enough. I know this has been kind of this is a very multidimensional aspect of what's going on around us. So we're being invited to just let go and be like the turtle from Finding Nemo. And in the meantime, in love and light, namaste, guys.